Good evening, everyone. Happy quarantine.
Hello, welcome to Get the Fork Out. Today I have with me Helen Papamichael, and she used to be in the perfume industry for about 10 years in Paris, of all places, and then she moved to the south of France and she started YPI, her and the president. She was the original, I think, employee. She'll correct me if I'm wrong. And she's been doing crew placement, chefs and interior, for about 20 years now. And so we're gonna have a good conversation about placing chefs and how that has changed over the last 20 years and what the expectations are then versus now. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, Brennan. Nice to finally meet you.
yeah. It's been we've spoken a few times over the years, but yeah, we've never actually seen each other. So
no.
Well.
So we'll do it, until we can see each other in person post-COVID.
yeah. I think the Zoom call, unfortunately, has been the standard for the last year. But I think this summer season will be a bit better than last. Bit more normal, I think. I hope so. It looks that way already. I mean, we have a 10-week charter booked, so that'll be cool. You won't see me on those 10 weeks, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that your story is interesting. Tell me about the perfume industry in Paris of all places.
Well, I ended up in Paris in my early 20s. I ended up working for a company that manufactured perfume, then, which was really interesting, in fact, then relocated to the south of France, needed a job. I knew nothing about the yachting industry, and I didn't even know a yachting industry existed. Met Laurence, the president of YPI Crew, who set up YPI Crew in 2002. She was recruiting somebody to be on reception and work with her. And yeah, she offered me the job. I took the job. She sold it to me. I think I knew I was hooked when she said, I'm going to get a purple sofa. And I was like, oh, she sounds so cool. So cool. I want to work with this lady. And there were two of us. So even at the beginning, can you believe I was sending a CV by fax? It was that long ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
people still ask for faxes in the US still to this day. Unbelievably.
Really?
They're like, can you send a fax? I'm like, no, I absolutely cannot. Well, I won't do it. No, it's 2021.
I mean, where do you find a fax machine?
No, I have no idea, but it still exists in the U.S. We're a little slow on the uptake over here. Believe it or not.
So we've moved with the times, and now we're 15 in total.
Amazing. And you've been doing, how much of the last 20 years have you been doing placement? Well,
I think, at the beginning, there was just Laurence and myself. So it just sort of happened organically, how Laurence was doing the main placements. As we grew, we obviously needed somebody else to help with the placement. So we recruited somebody else to be on reception. I stepped into doing stewardesses and chefs, and then we just kept growing. And, we work by department. So you'll have the engineering department, somebody taking care of, or a department taking care of captains, officers, another department for deckhands and boatswains. And then, eventually just myself recruiting stewardesses and chefs is too much. So then we've expanded on the interior, and there's 4 of us in total.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then now slowly, yeah, sorry, I was just going to say solely chefs. That's enough to take up my day, just managing the chefs.
I bet we're a bit unruly.
We're a handful.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very good term. I've been a yacht chef as long as you've been doing placement. So I think between the two of us, we'll have a good conversation about what it was then, which might bore everyone else, and what it has kind of morphed into today, because I think it's completely different. Yet
it's very different.
The same kind of what. Maybe it's not the same at all. Like the expectations and how you find jobs are completely different now. So yeah, I'm probably going to shoot with the first question. Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, even the way we recruit has, I think has evolved. and I think also as it's evolved, just because the boats have got bigger and bigger. When you started and when I started,
Yeah.
a big boat was 50-meter. Wow.
Yep.
Medium size 30-meter, and look at the size of the vessels now.
And I feel, I'm sure you do too, I feel really fortunate that 20 years ago, I landed in an industry that I had no idea it was going to be this boomy, like it would just keep going through these financial crises as we've, this is I guess the second big one that I've been through while in the industry. And it's just interesting to watch it still survive and still grow in these times when the rest of our respective countries or the world is going through something kind of annoying or horrific, depending on what level you're at in it. Yeah, it's just been an interesting ride. I feel like exactly what you said. Back in the day, I remember looking at like a 100-footer and just feeling like, whoa, it's a monster. One day I want to work on one of those. And my first boat was a 72-foot fed ship built in, I think it was less than that. No, it was about the same. It was the same as a year. So it was like built in 76 and it was like 74 foot, something like that. And yeah, that was my introduction to the industry. It's pretty unreal now, considering what's happened since then. But what did recruitment look like back then? I remember, but let's hear your version.
I think also recruitment agencies were different. Back then there were not so many, and
True.
It wasn't online. I mean, there are a lot of agencies that are just online, and it was really based, I would say, in Antibes. I think a couple maybe in Palma, and maybe stateside as well. But a big few in those places. The candidates would come to Antibes, go do the round of the few agencies. We used to be our office opposite Peter Insel. And it would always be like, oh, where's she going? Come to us first. And the queues of candidates outside. And I mean, that still happens. It did happen until obviously last year. Right. But I think a lot of candidates, it's easier to find work also without actually having to come to Antibes. You can do Zoom calls, you can do FaceTime interviews. There's a bigger online things presence.
So now we're like kind of morphed into what does it look like now? And now it's, you have things like Yacht Spot and a lot of these career agencies, I'm assuming, do a lot more business kind of remotely than they ever have in person. And that's also meant I remember when in the beginning, it was like, you had a 7-day menu. And back then it was like to have pictures was kind of like a digital photo was terrible. Like you wouldn't want that on your menu. And that has morphed into this kind of like, now it's just all about like and this is one of my questions following up. It's morphed into like, have your own website, have a presence on social media. It's just it's so completely different. And I think the expectations and the portfolio for a chef has gotten much bigger than what it used to be. Where, I mean, of course your photo was, your headshot or whatever you want to call it was on your resume. But other than that, it was just like, it wasn't practical to have anything else. And now it's just, I think it's hugely important, but let's hear, you know more about that. I'm only speaking from my personal, as the single chef, but like, what is it like for you as a recruiter to have chefs with strong social media or non-website or maybe a CV with hardly any photos, but wow, they've worked at some, banging restaurants and maybe even some yachts. What do you look for?
I mean, I'll look
easiest
for,
to place.
I think in the CV, it'll probably be your experience ashore, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Michelin restaurant, just some solid restaurant experience, because it depends what position you're looking for. If you're entering as a cruise chef, I don't need you to be a head chef in a Michelin star restaurant,
Right.
Even a fast-paced, more casual restaurant will still give you some good experience, but it's the hardest. I think it's hard to find work if, let's say, you're a chef and you've just done your apprenticeship and you've not worked in any restaurants. You need to get that shore-based experience. The food photos, I think, are becoming more and more important if you're looking for a guest chef position. So I do always advise candidates, if you, you know, because they do, more and more candidates are doing photos, but they'll just send them as 20 attachments. And this is a lot of work for you. Why would you want to keep sending emails with an attachment? So I just say, if you know, you're not all great on computers, just create an Instagram account, a professional chef, whatever account, and upload them to that.
Yeah.
And then it's live, you know, you're keeping it live, and the link is on your CV, and then the client just presses the link, and you're there. But
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's an easy tool. You don't, if you, like I said, if you don't have the means to do a nice website, I think an Instagram account or something similar is an easy way to showcase your food and maybe who you are, your travels. You know, it's I think this is quite nice, and a lot of clients are asking for food photos. And what you said was really interesting about back in the day. Some of the food photos I saw were awful, and it doesn't mean that their food was awful, but the quality. And the client would say, can you send the photos? And I would actually not send them, because I was thinking, well, if I send them, he won't get the job, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas I knew he would do a good job.
Right. Yeah, and I think some of my food photos back in the day were pretty horrific, because I didn't know shit about photography, and B, I thought you needed a flash, and you know, I didn't know anything about lighting, and I still see some of those photos today, even on Instagram, where like, you can't use a flash for a food photo. Like, you just can't. You shouldn't, unless it's super technical flash. But I don't want to go there. That's interesting what you said about if you can't really do, because we're talking about bandwidth. Like, a lot of boats, especially if they're off the dock and on the guest trip, they're not going to be able to take like the 20, 75 megabit nice picture files. They just can't. So host them somewhere else, I guess, is one of the main points that we're both trying to make, either make a website or just Instagram. If you don't have the capability or the computer savviness to make your own website, which is damn easy these days. It's drag and drop. I just made one. It took me like a day a few months ago. And yeah, so host your photos somewhere else. What about, have videos become more prevalent? Like almost like an introductory video, or this is who I am? Not necessarily like a massive edit, but even just talking to a camera for 10 seconds or 20 seconds.
I've had, not yet, it may do. I had one chef recently send me a video of himself. As you said, he did a 5-minute video just to present himself, which was actually great.
Yeah.
I guess some chefs, you know, it also depends on your personality, how easy, especially if you're starting out in the industry, to sit in front of the camera and not engaging with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, but I think like we're just brainstorming ideas because I want to help. Like, ideally, I'd like to help people just get jobs, especially if you're good at your craft, and you just, because it's definitely like in my experience, and I think you'll agree with me, it's like you can be good at your job, but then you have a whole nother job about looking for work, which is a totally different skill set and completely unrelated to what you did before. And it's about networking, and it's about getting yourself out there and presenting yourself in the best way possible, which you could be an amazing chef and kind of get stuck in a cupboard because you're not good at looking for work. And that's not really fair, but that's the industry that we live in. So I think what I'd like to get out of this video, and the title will be like, I don't know, optimizing chef recruitment or something like that, where it's just make it easier for people that aren't as tech savvy or have like social skills through the roof to still find work. I mean, you're still absolutely relevant. You can still be an amazing charter chef on a shit hot 100 meter, but how do you sell yourself? And that's not easy for everyone.
No, it's not. And I think that's what you said. It's about presenting yourself, not like this, but first off, your CV. And it doesn't have to be really flashy with colors and symbols and pie charts, you know, because this is really distracting. Believe me, I've seen
pie charts.
I've seen a pie chart. Because who wants to see
with an actual pie?
I'm 20% good at Asian cuisine. That's actually not bad.
I want to see that. Show me that after.
But, you know, and you know, it's very distracting. And if I were a chef actually looking for work, I think I would be confused, because we've kind of done this. If you do a Google search, yacht chef CV, all sorts of CVs come up. So then it's quite confusing. What do I do? But my advice and what our clients want is a simple CV where you can read the experience, You know, no columns, because that's quite hard for the eye to follow. And also all your experience. I've also heard chefs say, oh, I thought I shouldn't put all my experience or all my restaurant experience. It's not relevant. And it is relevant. What if I were to send
massively.
you, I could send you a CV to a head chef who knows the head chef of that restaurant. But if you don't put it on your CV, you know, so get the CV right. It doesn't need to be all on one page, which I've also heard. You know, the clients can read 2 pages, 3 pages. So that the CV needs to look tip top. And then obviously,
can I make a comment about CVs real quick from a chef's point of view? Because even back in the day, there was probably 10 crew agents that were relevant, that, you know, any one of them could have had a job that you wanted. So you needed to pay attention to all of them. But now there's like 30, 40. There's a shitload of relevant agencies in the industry that you need to be. So each agency oftentimes will ask you for a slightly different format of your resume. And it could be something as easy as like, well, can you switch your profile photo to the other side? And what about this? What about this? I would recommend don't do that. Well, it depends. Hold on. Let me make sure I give good advice here. I would invest $50 to $100 on someone online through the Yachting network to do a professional resume for you. It needs to be in the Yachting network. And then once you have that locked in and you've shown it to a few agents and they're like, yeah, that looks really good, then kind of everyone else that tells you to change after that's like, sorry, I can't. But it is annoying. There's certain formats when you have to upload to certain sites that it needs to fit a certain format. So anyway, that would be my advice. That helped me out a lot. But what do you think about, is that worth chefs spending the money?
I wouldn't pay some, I think as long as you can type, I don't think you need to necessarily, unless it's really difficult and you find it really hard with the fonts and everything. I don't even know if you need to pay somebody, or if you pay somebody, make sure that if somebody says, I want, you know, can you just make these changes, that whoever created it will change it for you.
We'll change it for you,
without costing this amount, or you can change it. Because I've also had candidates say, oh, but I can't change. You don't want a CV that you can't change.
Nope. Yeah, I agree. And you also have to change formats, like certain uploads, like you can only be like a 10 megabyte upload maximum or something tiny like that. And then you've got all these kind of high resolution photos, and do you have the time and you tech savvy enough to change the resolution to make the file smaller, so like the entire resume is now smaller. I hear you, but I don't know. Like I had someone do it. Mary Dupreece, she's awesome. And she, like, if I make tiny changes, she doesn't, and I can do the changes myself, but if they're big and there's formatting, she just does it for free. So I just think it puts you above the rest. Like if a chef who's never really sat in front of the computer most of his career, right? I've heard horror stories from provisioner friends that be like, just chefs sending their whole order on Facebook Messenger, and like, just like, what do you? So that type of person needs someone to do a resume for them. Honestly, you do.
I think what you sounds like whoever did your CV, you have a good relationship. So I think it's it's the same kind of relationship as with an agent. Find somebody you trust, and also that they do it how you want it. Because I've asked chefs, can you change it and do it like this and put your yachting experience, and not your restaurant experience. And then they said to me, oh, I'm glad you told me that, because I didn't like how my CV had been done. And I think you should also be happy, you know, happy. They said, I had a CV like that and I liked it like that. And if you're happy with it, I mean, and you feel it's selling you in the best way, then stay with it as well. But it is confusing for candidates. I agree with hearing so many different things. So maybe you could also just register with not with every agency, but you know, because there are too many.
Just with YPI.
Just register with YPI Crew, obviously, with a few select agencies, so that of which YPI Crew. And if you're not registered with 20 agencies, you won't get 20 different people telling you different things. But I do understand
from the chef's point of view. That's the challenge, though, is that of those 20 agencies, and there's 20, there's probably a little bit more. is that
More.
you don't know where that shit hot job that you really want will pop up. It can be anywhere. It's like whack-a-mole. You can't just have a select three. I wish it was that way. I really do wish it was that way. But from the crew perspective, and I'm only speaking about chefs, it's not, unfortunately. And I think to have a good resume, it's hugely important just to come up with a stack. But I think what I found the Mary was through Elite Crew. Like they just recommended someone. So I think that's a good way to do it. Like have a crew agent recommend someone that does resumes that's not going to, you know, charge you $20 for every tiny change and will work with you on like I think that's why my format on my resume is good, because it was recommended through a crew agent that that was kind of the industry standard.
I think that's a good idea
Freelancer.
to ask around your, you know, the chefs that you may know, or if you see a CV you like, how did you do it? Or if the chef did it, maybe they can do it for you, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, the CV is super important. And what you mentioned about the food photos, I think if you want to avoid it being too heavy, because even if I try and send a 10 megabyte CV, it won't go through. That's why the website or the Instagram account, the link means you don't have to worry about the photos on the CV.
And I want to jump track a little bit onto food photos. Like they're massively important. And I don't think it takes that long to learn how to take like the strategy behind taking a food photo. And I'm going to be honest with you, food photography pisses me off. Like I don't enjoy it at all, because it's like, it's cold food. It's sitting there forever. Tastes like shit now. And you're like, you're spraying it with stuff. Like it isn't real. It isn't at all what we do. It's almost like looking for work. It's just this kind of side hustle that you just kind of have to be good at it. Or at least decent at it to have presentable food photos. And it's kind of annoying, but you need to do it in order to have your food look right. Because I've seen plenty of food that's actually shit food, but it's a great photograph and it still catches the eye, and vice versa. I've seen something that's like really an amazing plate that's complicated and nuanced, but to use the flash or the lighting is terrible. So I think food photos, especially now, especially with Instagram, whether you're on, that's how you're presenting yourself or not. Like food photos the game has been upped by about 10 in the last 5 years. Like expectations of food photos are through the roof now. So you kind of need to get on that.
Right.
That would be my advice.
And that's what, I mean, I don't base my judgment on the food photo, but I'll ask for them, or I'll ask for an account, because the client, you know, will ask, the captain will ask, or the owner will say, have you got food photos? So, you know, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I just think I've noticed that it has changed and it's gotten harder. So I know it's annoying, but it's important, because the resume is one thing, but if your food photos don't match up to your resume or vice versa, it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of a swing and a miss. But if I look at my phone, it's just to check the questions, not because I'm like checking my okay, so we went over like how you think the industry is changing. What about, okay, on that same question, in what significant ways have you seen the requirements for chefs change in the last 20 years? So I think we talked about recruitment, but what do you think about, what about boat expectations, whether they be captain, crew, or owner expectations? Do you think they've changed or morphed at all as the industry has grown?
I think, and I don't know if this is a reflection for the sort of that, you know, the rock star chef image, the rock and roll chef, but I think when I started recruiting chefs, nobody was really looking at actually so much at the restaurants and your land-based experience. I think this has become more important. And, you know, an owner may say, I want a Michelin star chef, even if he doesn't want Michelin star food, he just wants the Michelin star chef. You know, it's been, to be a chef is quite cool and trendy. So I think this is what a lot of owners will be looking for. A head chef, if he's recruiting a sous or a crew chef, is probably not too bothered about the yachting experience. Again, I think before it was probably more about the yachting experience. They're happy to take somebody green to the industry with the right background. So I feel like the restaurant, your experience pre-yachting is also as important as your yachting experience now.
I agree. I agree completely. And that has changed. 20 years
Definitely.
ago, like, I mean, America didn't even know what Michelin stars. We didn't have Michelin stars 20 years ago. So it was very, if you were a chef, you knew what it was. But if you were in the yachting industry and you didn't go to the Med, you wouldn't have a clue. But I do have another question about, which it's kind of, I'd like to stay here, but about Michelin star chefs on in yachting, because it is like, it's a lot of people in the industry that are in the hiring process want to see it. And I was curious as to your experience, because I don't know. I've got buddies in the industry that definitely worked at Michelin stars and they're shit hot chefs. But with that as the kind of requirement, have you seen those people? I mean, are they always successful, or are sometimes they're also a swing and a miss? Because I feel like when you hire a Michelin star chef and the owner is like, oh, I got a Michelin star chef, like that guy was a line cook. Like he wasn't the head
Yes.
chef. He doesn't have stars
Yes.
like with him. He doesn't actually have any. But I feel like the kind of the industry, like, oh, I've got a Michelin star chef. No, you've got a guy that worked there. You know, like
Yes.
I just think there's a huge difference. I don't think the industry knows about that. They're just like, oh, that's the same guy. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it probably depends who's recruiting. A head chef will obviously see the CV and say, well, he'll see he's only been chef de partie, or, you know, this isn't a guest chef. It's true, just because he's worked in a Michelin star restaurant, depending on the level he's been, it doesn't mean he's going to come up and serve you Michelin star food.
Correct. Yeah.
But then you'll get chefs who have been maybe running their own restaurant, a very high level restaurant, coming into the industry. And for the most part, I think they do quite well once they realize they're not going to come in and be head chef on an 80-meter. You know, it probably maybe start sole chef on a 30, 40-meter.
And they're going to have to do all their own pots and pans.
Yes.
They're going to have to do breakfast, which they might not know how to do. They're going to have to do desserts, which they might not know how to do. They're going to have to like provision for at least a week at a time without having access to more food. And you're going to have to do all of the cleaning as well. So I think that kind of is a shock to anyone, really, because you come from any sort of like regimented career and it's like, well, there's enough people to do everything. Where I feel like in a galley, there's not quite enough people to do all these jobs and the hours are long. So I just think that's it's just something that I've noticed over the years, that it kind of keeps a lot of people out of the industry because of how long the hours can be. Yeah, and it's not an office job.
No, it's true. And I guess it depends what restaurant, you know, it's, if you've not worked in a Michelin star restaurant, but you've been chef in a very small restaurant and you've been the only chef in the tiny kitchen, then probably they usually adapt quite well because they're used to cleaning up after themselves. They're used to long, crazy hours. They're not phased, and other than the provisioning side, which they need some guidance with, they come in and do well.
Yeah, I think it's down to the human, because like I said, a lot of my friends are Michelin star experience and they're awesome. I mean, they're so good at their jobs, and some just they don't last that long because it's just different. You know, like there's no stagiaires, there's no nothing. It's just kind of, you know, how many tricks do you have that are quick ones? Like there's no these long format kind of things unless you can put them in the freezer or dry and put it dry store. So I just think the industry asking for those people, it's an interesting thing because it's quite different. Like a yacht chef versus any restaurant chef is quite different. Like I describe, like kind of a yacht chef has to, like, imagine going to a resort for 2 weeks and eating at the same restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's what yacht chefs have to do, and I think that's quite challenging. It's the reason why I've been doing it so long, because I love that. I love the versatility, but it's it's not easy. It's not easy for someone to specialize in sushi and then come and be like, well, how are you gonna bust out a good Mexican night? You know, like I just think it's tricky, but it's taught me so much about food that I love it for that reason.
And there's also the side, what if you're, you know, lots of chefs I hear want to come in because they can cook what they want, but actually no.
Sometimes
you have to cook what the owner wants.
Exactly. Yes. But I think that's part of the learning process too, that I appreciate, is like you have these guest restraints, and there are restrictions of what you can do, but you're made to work inside those restraints. but you learn, you're like, oh, I like it here. I like it in this weird little like gluten-free world. Like that is a banging recipe that I never would have known. Yeah, I do. And I think that's why I prefer charter as well. Is you just can push in directions you never would have gone in. Like, wow, all right, I like it here. This is cool. Anyway, I'm talking about myself too much. What are we? Let's talk about the industry. Okay, if you were to give a trained professional chef moving from restaurants to yachts some advice that they don't want to hear, what would that be?
I mean, I think I touched on it before, but I think, again, I think it's confusing when you're starting in the industry now, because a lot of times agencies may post their, you'll see jobs posted online. So you're not, maybe you don't know what to expect, but often I can hear some chefs saying, I want to be a sous chef for a year and then I'll be head chef on an 80-meter on rotation. And so I think it's managing expectations.
Yeah.
And just
you
saying,
can get lucky,
okay,
but,
you know, this isn't going to happen in a nice way, I'll say.
Yeah.
You know, you have to put the time in, and there are different routes if you want to be a head chef long term, you know,
yes.
but it's not as easy as I'll be a sous chef for a year and then I'm going to step up into that head chef position. And managing the expectations again about salary and time off. Rotation is definitely becoming more frequent.
Yeah.
But not if you've never worked on a yacht and have no yachting experience. You'll be against a lot of competition for those jobs. It might happen, but you know, I think it's just managing the expectations. Yeah,
it's lucky too, like where you end up and where your first job and what network inside the industry did you find yourself in. And I think it really is a networking industry. Like it's who you know, and that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yes, and I also think if you're, I would say, you know, be a bit flexible or open to the job opportunities. You don't want to cut any alleyways. It's about finding a good, you know, good boats in terms of crew fit. It's the whole thing, not just the size of the boat, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I think after 20 years, my favorite part of the industry is the crew. Like, I couldn't imagine another career where you're going to work with such like hilarious, dynamic individuals from all over the world, and the amount of conversations and banter you can have with these individuals. It's great. I mean, that's why I've been doing it so long. It's the best.
And I mean, it's also keeping, I often say, you know, you have to keep the crew happy. It's probably a challenge sometimes, is it? Or
yeah, keeping the crew happy is that the crew is your next the crew is your next job. I mean, that is the kind of your mouthpiece to the industry. So yeah, you have to look after them within reason. If someone's being a pain in the ass, you can tell me being a pain in the ass. Like, I'm not your personal chef. Like, come on. But they're hugely important, and like your world as a chef gets so much better if you're doing great food for the whoever the guests are, whether they're charter or owner, and for the crew. Like, whatever, if you ask for stuff, you just get it because everyone just appreciates you. So if you just skimp on the crew, then won't work. Well, your life is better if you spoil them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's really, you know, that's some advice I give as well. Just keep the crew happy and you'll be happy.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's like it goes because like goes up to the captain. So if you ask for a new piece of kit, it's like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. It's exactly. I couldn't recommend that. I think that would be, I guess that's my biggest piece of advice is like look after the crew. You can't just be nah, just do guest stuff.
No, and I mean they have to. I say just think when you're working, all the crew working those hours, how much they're looking forward to that. To that crew meal.
That's it. Yeah.
Something to
and
look
then I like to put up menus too, because that way they can just look at, oh, I want that, you know, because there's a lot of it's not so much in the galley, but a lot of the departments, like their day is quite samey. Like it's mundane, not all the time. And so at least if you give them something like a decent menu to look forward to, you're like, oh, at least I can look forward to lunch or tea break or whatever. And it does help morale. I had one chief engineer to say like chef's jobs are so hard. Like, and there's always like this interdepartmental rivalry, which is great and it's good banter. But he's like, yeah, I wouldn't want So I'm like, why is that? It's like, you guys are in charge of morale. I'm like, oh shit, it's kind of true. Not really, but we definitely impact it. Yeah, it's definitely impact. Like if the food is good, morale goes up. So yeah, it's huge, massive. I mean, that would be my advice to new crew or people migrating from restaurants to the industry is like, you're in charge of morale. You do your part. Do your part.
I'm going to use that. I like that. You're in charge of morale.
Oh, it's brutal, but it's good. It puts a kind of the expectations in the right place. Like, yeah, exactly. It is. Oh, it gives me anxiety just talking about it. All right. Let's see. I kind of want to come back to that one. Can you tell us any funny stories, either of crazy chef jobs that you've had to fill, or epic chef fails after you place them? Obviously, no names of boats or chefs, but like, there's got to be some good ones.
Yeah, I think I can't say them here for the.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The crazy chef ones, I think it probably comes a few times from, you know, as you probably have plenty of those stories, the owner requests or non-requests. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, actually probably some years ago, it was a large yacht, and Madame wanted to take care of the chef recruitment. It was super important to her, whoever was hired as chef. So you're thinking, okay, the chef is really important to her. Eating the food must be really high on her list, because, you know, otherwise they'll let the captain take care of it. So we were ping-ponging back with email. I was trying to get hold of her by phone to get a bit more information of what she wanted. And then I thought, okay, she said to call today. I won't call at lunchtime. I don't want to bother her at lunchtime. So I think I called just about 2:30, and I said, you know, oh, hi, I said, I'm sorry I didn't call earlier. I didn't want to bother you at lunchtime. And she was like, oh, I never eat. And then I was like, oh, what am I doing looking for a chef for you?
Yeah, why do you care so much?
It's ludicrous. It's just these little funny things where it kind of is not a billionaire or a millionaire, it just kind of makes you laugh. And you know, the request from I think one chef that was fired because he cut the carrots in little rondelles instead of julienne, and it's like, get the chef off.
No. Oh.
I'm sure you must have plenty.
I don't have any ready though. I'm like, I ask you this question and I say the questions, but I'm like, oh shit, you don't have anything ready. So there's a couple. There's like the random stuff that every chef has. It's like, you know, you could be, the guests could be super happy and they go out drinking, and then, you know, you're gonna wake up at 3 in the morning and make drunk person food, which is, it's part of the job.
Yes.
Or you could be like on a certain type of boat, and there's many types of boat in the industry. I'm not saying that they're all the same, and we're like, you know, it'd be like also 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and like maybe a professional escort is asking for sushi at 4 a.m. and you're like, oh my god, you asshole. It's gonna be like, to make sushi from scratch, it's gonna like at least 2 hours, you know, like maybe not 90 minutes if you can.
Oh my goodness.
Why? Yeah, there's a lot of posturing, I feel like, with some of the guests that are kind of unfamiliar with the lavish lifestyle that the guests lead, and they're just trying to show off and posture, and you're like, oh, you. I don't have any good stories though, and that's gonna come to me as soon as this Zoom call is over. I'll be like, oh, you should have told that banger, but I just can't remember any right now.
It's always, you know, the owner that has the dog that you need to cook the meat a certain way and cut up the meat.
Yeah. And but I also like, I want to keep coming back to like new people to the industry, because I think like, so these stories that we tell, the whole industry isn't like that. Like these people or programs, they get a reputation. And so if you're a greenie, you kind of have to knock a couple of these out to establish yourself. And then the rest of the industry will be like, oh, you work for so-and-so? Holy shit, you were there for 6 months? I only lasted 2 months, or something like that. So as you come up in the industry, you can really say no to that shit. You do not have to do that anymore, which is a nice thing.
I think
but
that's nice. What you said was a nice point about you only lasted 2 months. I think when you enter the yachting industry, you know, or even a chef that's been in the industry for ages, he might, for whatever reason, just not be the right fit for the owner, and the owner asks for a change. And for somebody that's, I've had this a few times, that's just entered the yachting industry, and this happens, it's really upsetting. And, you know, I think if you speak to a lot of chefs, this has happened to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's happened, move on, and there'll be another job. And you'll probably go on to the next boat, and you'll be the best thing that's ever happened to the owner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite an interesting industry in that respect, where you don't know what you're walking into, really, unless you can kind of tap into your network and figure out the reputation of the owner, the program, captain, crew, whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's nerve-wracking. You do not know what you're walking into, and you could be, like you said, you could either quit or get axed right away, be like, not doing this, or be the best chef they've ever had. And all right, sick. You don't know. You just gotta roll the dice.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And again, you know, it just depends on the owner, and it doesn't mean you're not a good chef. It's just, owner could just be having a bad day as well, you know. Any chef could be the wrong chef.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's quite hectic that way. But it's kind of like one of those things too, where freelancing helps out a lot with that, where
Yes.
like from my perspective, like I'll be on a boat for like the last 2 boats I was on, like a 86-meter fed ship and a 74-meter novice crew. I was there for 4 years. But in between those 2 4-year stints, I was freelancing around. I was sniffing around over here, scratching around over here, like, no, or wanting something, not getting it. It wasn't always me saying no. It was just like, well, shit, all right. And it's just finding that situation that's right. And I think freelancing is massive for that, where rather than sitting at home and applying to the 30 agencies every day, just get out there and meet in person. I don't know what that looks like now in COVID times, but like to be in Lauderdale during the boat show, to be in the south of France now, to get ready for the summer season, it's hugely invaluable. Make sure you go to the crew bars, make sure you hit up the agencies in person, make sure you look sharp, whether you're out in the town or, you know, shopping your resume around. It's massively important, that personal connections. Like I don't know what that looks like now though. I don't know.
Well, that doesn't look like that now in the south of France, because everything's shut, and everything's shut, so we can't actually meet anybody.
I'm in Fort Lauderdale and everything's wide open because they just don't give a shit here. Wide open, not clubs, everything. Yeah.
Wow. No, restaurants, everything's been shut since October. Bars, restaurants, cafes. You know, we can't meet crew, and crew can't really come. I think with the different travel restrictions, we wouldn't advise crew to come, because you may, the law, you know, the rules into getting to the country change all the time, changing all the time.
Absolutely.
It's not.
But that's a good part of the conversation we should have, is like, if you were to give advice for right now, the 1st of April, because this is prime job getting time. This is prime recruitment time. This is when you would normally come to Antibes specifically, and maybe now to a lesser extent or not, Barcelona. I mean, what does that look like now? How can you even get into a crew house?
What is that? Unfortunately, but it doesn't mean you won't find a job. I mean, if you're in the States, then maybe you'll find a job stateside. It's a bit more location orientated. If you're in Europe, you can, you know, if you've got the boat papers, seafarers documents, you can join a boat, and be aware that I guess also what's hard when you're a chef or any crew member and you're at home looking for work, I think there's a feeling, I have a lot of chefs saying, oh, you know, I'm doing this and there's no, is it me? And I said, no, it's not you. You're not, you know, and it's reassuring them and saying it's definitely not you. There are plenty of other chefs looking for work, but and you're not by yourself. And keep in mind as well, even, okay, now would be the time when it starts getting busy, but January, February, even some of March, we're still into season. So that's not necessarily when the boats are recruiting people.
True.
So, you know, keep in mind the timing, and this summer will be different to last summer. I mean, it feels busier already.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah, I think so. It's the vibes I'm getting from my chef friends and provisioners and the crew agents as well. It just looks a bit busier, but I know what that feeling is like when you're at home. You're like, oh,
I
Well, is it
know.
me? Am I giving a bad reference? Is it my resume? Is it, is it because I'm bald? Is it like all these things? Like, what? Why not me? But literally, I think now it's just supply and demand. There's no
It is.
jobs. There are very few, and
Exactly.
there's a ton of people. There's a ton of people in line waiting for the same job. And just be yourself. That's all I would recommend. Just be yourself. And also, I don't know if it's good advice or not. You can tell me what you think, but like, get a social media presence.
Yes.
Just don't know. It helps. It just really helps.
No, I mean, I think, and I think also try and connect with agencies by speaking, or, a personal connection with some, I don't mind if somebody calls me and says, are there any jobs? I mean, I'll say, no, I would have been in touch if I hadn't, but I understand it maybe reassures you to have somebody on the phone saying it's not you.
Yeah.
Check in, make sure you're also up to date with the agencies, because if you haven't checked in onto your account for 2 months, then I may think, well, you haven't checked in for 2 months. Are you actually available for work? So I think you need to keep everything active.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak to a little bit about this, about organizing. What's it like to do the online job search? And what I've done is I use Google Chrome, and I set bookmarks. So I have a bookmarks for every agency, whether they're a brick and mortar or just online, and I just rip through that, not every day, but every other day, and just check in, and go down a list. And I order them to like the most important at the top, like the most relevant, like chef specific ones are at the top, and I just go down through them. And I'm happy to I could probably post those in the comments on this, and if that helps people, because it's super annoying to one work and not be able to find it is quite irritating, and especially now. And I don't know, like Lauderdale is open, but pretty soon the whole industry is gonna migrate over to the Med anyway. So this would normally be the time, like if you want to dock walk, if you want to post up, you'd be in the south of France right now. And I don't know what that is going to look like, because there's still going to be boats that need day workers. There's still going to, like, our chef just broke his leg, we need a new chef. Like, you still kind of need to be there, but I don't know what that looks like now.
I think you just can't come. And once you're, I mean, this is specific to France, because you're in France, you can only stay in a very small zone. So I think it's just a week by week, and by May, hopefully anyway, things will have started to lift properly. What I think is also tough for chefs at the moment is, normally if you're not working, I would, you can do agency work, you can go and work in the restaurants, you keep things ticking along. In a lot of countries, the restaurants are shut, so you can't even keep going with restaurant work. Yeah,
that's pretty grim right now. I think I feel very fortunate. I got exactly the job that I wanted, but it took a while. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was sitting this summer in Estonia, just like turning down jobs I really didn't want, and I feel like I got very lucky, and I'm very fortunate to have what I have, on a number of different levels. But yeah, just not you. I like that. I like that you said that, because I could feel myself feeling that way, and I could imagine, of course, people would feel that way. Like, you just getting no interest in your resume. You're like, shit, what's wrong?
I know, and obviously I know that, because I'm in the office and I can see what's going on. But you're just one chef by yourself at home. You don't have that vision that I do. So you will start saying, is it me? Is it my CV? Is it my experience? But it's not.
No, it's not. It's supply and demand, which, I mean, I remember I was looking for, probably about 10 years ago, I was looking for a couples position, which is always hard to get, pandemic or not. And so I made a website, and I shot a video, like, stay busy that way. It really, it just one little step at a time, it helps build positivity. And it's just like a prep list. Like, you're just ticking boxes. And I mean, what if it's your resume and someone else's, but you've got a website with a couple banger videos, like, they're going to choose you. So if you have nothing to do, just go learn something new, and it's not hard. Just everything you need to know in life is on YouTube, and it's massive. I couldn't recommend that enough, especially in a competitive market.
They can watch you on YouTube.
Yeah, olive oil and gasoline on YouTube. I'm gonna plug myself. There's this podcast will be up there, actually, so they probably would have already found it by now. But yeah, I think it helps. I mean, you just never know what people are looking for. So I think every chef has an
Exactly.
idea in their mind, like, oh, I've got to be this, or I have to be that. Like, nah, just be yourself. And the right people will be drawn to you. It's almost like a natural filter in life. And you won't have to waste your time with the people that won't be appreciative of who you are. You just throw yourself out there. I mean, you're going to have to be in front of guests anyway, so you might as well just get used to it. It's just the way.
And you're right. Every chef is different. So you shouldn't worry. Oh, I'm one of 10 chefs going for this job, or I'm one of, your CV will be very different to the other chef, and it could be exactly what the owner wants, or the captain, or the head chef, or
Yep. I agree. Yeah.
No, and I think,
don't worry about like their requirements versus just go for it. Like, it doesn't matter.
I think as well, I think also a lot of the times there's that, again, if they see a job advertised online, there'll be a list of requirements. This isn't really how we work, but maybe other jobs are posted, and they'll be like, oh, I need this, and I don't have this, and I don't have that, and I don't have that. Will I be able to get a job? And it's like, again, don't worry, not all the jobs will ask for this, and this. So,
right. Yeah.
Basic training, your medical, obviously, and the right attitudes, willing, the personality is a big thing when you enter the industry, to have the right attitude.
Agreed, because unlike the restaurant industry, which is hectic as well, is that you're going to live and work with these fine individuals, so that you just want to make sure that you're going to be a little bit personable and not socially awkward, but like just show whatever, like it
exactly.
it's very intimate what we do on boats. Like you're in a really high stress situation, and you're all living together. Like it's just different. It's so, but that, like I said before, that's one of the best parts, is that, oh, we've got a day off in Sardinia, like that.
Yeah.
We haven't had a day off in 3 weeks, and this is awesome. Like, well, what are we gonna do? It's just such a dynamic industry in that way, where the view out the window is going to change every day, and it's fascinating. I mean, that's another reason why I've stayed in it for so long, is that I couldn't imagine like driving my motorcycle to the same restaurant every day. It's not for me. No way. I'd rather just like do my commute up the crew stairs into the galley, and that's it. Like,
it's much quicker.
Yeah, it's much quicker. There could be traffic. There could be someone coming down the other way, but it's not quite as time consuming. I think that's all right. Well, one last question. How do you think social media has impacted? We've already touched on this a little bit, but like, how do you think it's impacted recruitment? And how could people breaking in the industry help themselves out? And I know we've touched on already, but like maybe some do's and don'ts on social media. That would be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the CV, I've even seen some sites where you post a CV and then there's your photo, and you'd think this is a simple thing, but you see some really strange choices for the photos. Let's put it like that. Just a nice photo, not like you're going to the beach photo, or Hawaiian shirt with your hair, whatever.
Yeah. Or a selfie, or a drink in your hand, or
an arm around the shoulder.
Yeah. And like Google it. Spend 5 minutes on how to take a good photograph. Like, it's not that hard.
No, exactly. And I mean, again, I always say to the chefs, there's also this kind of, the Gordon Ramsay, like looking really fierce. But I think what you also want to try, and this is easy for me to say because I'm not having my photo taken and I wouldn't really like it, but you also want to convey that you're easigoing, I'm calm in the galley.
Not an asshole.
Yeah, I'm not going to throw knives at the earliest occasions. Yeah. So try and convey all that in your photo.
Agreed. Yeah, don't look like Gordon Ramsay is just about to scream at someone. It's not.
I think exactly. That's not the image you want to portray. As you said, you're not going to be going home at night, locking the door. You're going to be there on the yacht the whole time. And the social media, I think it's a little bit what you said about the drinking. If you've got a Facebook page or whatever, if you're leaving it open for everybody to access, think about the content on there. that's really, really important. If there's stuff on there that, you know, you want to keep, but you don't want, that you think might not be suitable for an employer to see, then make your account private.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I think about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, I went through it. It's like any kind of like partying shots, which is like, that's part of the industry too, but like, just trim those out. That's not a good look. No one wants to see that, you know, like it's just, I don't know. That's just kind of, I think that's good general advice if you're looking for any kind of work, especially if you're going to leave, like you said, your Facebook open. It's like, well, don't do that.
I mean, I think that's it. It doesn't matter, you know, you know, everybody's going to have fun and party, but you don't need to, again, otherwise it looks like, oh, he's just going to go out and party all the time. Oh, he said he was a non-smoker, but why has he got a cigarette in his hand? Or,
put some photos of hiking or some puppies or something. Like, don't make that
you could be really actually clever with it. One with your grandmother, one taking your dog for a walk.
It's a tool.
You could really, exactly. So I think they should use it as a tool. If you're on social media and you're advertising yourself as a chef, don't do it every day, because, you know, don't post yourself every day, because I think that's a bit much, and it'll get to the point where it's like, why is he still looking for work? So you don't want to.
It's a fine line too, and that's a good thing we can talk about. Is like a lot of people are posting their resumes on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, I've thought about it, but I don't think I could. You know, I just don't think that's a good look either. Especially exposing all your details.
I mean, no, you exactly, and maybe you could do it once and then see, but also you lose a little bit of control of of your job search, because you've just put yourself out there. You also want to be in control of where your CV is going, on who's going to be contacting you about work. So, and then, as you say, a lot of the time the personal details are actually on there, and it's open for everybody to see.
Yeah, including some of your references. Like I've seen someone, like I've been as a reference and it's been posted online. I'm like, oh, bro, that's my email and phone number. Like, come on.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I didn't even, you're right, but that's true. Then all your referee details are also posted for everybody to see. Good point.
It just depends on the person. Like most people, I'd be like savvy enough to not do that, but some people, now it all goes up there. You're like, oh, God.
Yeah, I think they just don't know, and they need guidance. And I think, you know, use it as a tool, as a tool, definitely.
Yeah, it's your own PR tool. You can really work it.
You definitely can.
Especially if you're not working, you might as well.
Well, there's not much.
Polish up your Facebook.
Yeah, there's not much else
do
to do.
Some cooking videos. Yeah, definitely. Oh. Yeah, I couldn't. This is a tough time to look for work. So this is kind of one of the reasons why I want to do this video with you, just to, however helpful I can be to, and you can be, to help people connect the dots a little bit and think outside the box in different directions in terms of the appropriate ways to look for work, or get ideas on how to do it in a different way than, because it's hyper competitive out there right now. It's rough. COVID.
But I think it's looking positive. I mean, I've seen quite a few chefs who are new to yachting get jobs recently, which is, I think, really encouraging, even if they've spent the whole winter looking. You know, it definitely won't be like last year where it just sort of stopped.
No. Well, everyone just panicked and shut down, where I think the industry will migrate to the countries that are open, and that's going to be to the detriment of France and Italy. I don't know I'm not in Europe now, so I'm not sure which countries are open or shut, but it's, the whole world is dealing with that balance of like, do we shut down and ruin our economy? Do we open up, boost our economy and kill a bunch of people? So I don't think anyone has the answer. It's pretty dire, but I think it's going to be better than last summer. Last summer was crazy. There's also a lot of long charters. Have you noticed that? There's long charters coming up. Like, people are just quarantining on yachts that can afford it. Oh, you're back.
Oh, yeah, I can just see your logo. Oh, there you are.
All right. Yeah, my internet connection is not that stable, but we should probably wrap it up anyway. It's been an hour, but thanks for coming on. Like, this is great.
It's a
I
pleasure.
really enjoyed this chat. Yeah, it's good to do stuff that may be helpful to other people.
I
But
hope so.
yeah, I really appreciate it. And yeah, we
hope
can do
so.
it again. Maybe we'll do it again after the summer. We'll talk about the
How it
winter
was.
season and how it was, and then talk about like best strategies for looking for work when we know more after the summer, when we maybe COVID's a little bit easier or worse, whatever it ends up being.
Easier, hopefully. Better.
Hopefully, yeah, for all of us. Yeah. France has been locked down since October. Yuck. I feel sorry for you. That's rough. But
It's,
yeah,
at
again,
least it's
yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll get better.
I think, I mean, you know, it seems maybe in May things will start reopening. I mean, you know, there was a government talk last night, but they want things to be open for the summer. So
yes, it has to be. Otherwise, I don't know. It's a delicate balance. Like I said, open, closed, economy, no economy. It's tough. And the government, they don't know what they're doing either. So that's I think that's the hardest part for the world to watch as citizens, no matter where you're from, to be like, you don't know what you're doing. We're just getting orders and you have no idea what you're doing. But anyway, just roll with the punches, I guess. But thank you very much for coming on. Let's
you're
do it
welcome.
again. It's fun.
Great to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, we've never actually seen each other, so this has been great.
No.
Great.
Just seen your photo.
Yeah. Probably my videos too. I'm
And
recommending.
your videos, yeah. My scrambled egg has never been so good.
Really? Are you still doing that? The soft scramble?
I'm still doing it.
Excellent. Good. It's nice to hear. It's good to be helpful, I think.
Yeah.
But, let's do it again. Let's do it again. October. You know, the switch of the seasons are around
Perfect.
then. But all right, Helen.
Good.
Have a
Good
great
to see you, Brennan.
evening. Good to see
Take
you.
care. Bye.
All right. Bye.